You're listening to Filmmakers Drinking Bourbon. Hey, what's up, Internet? It's Brandon.
And this is Alex.
And Sarah.
And we're filmmakers.
And we're also drinking bourbon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
And gal. All right, we got something special
this
today.
Doesn't look like a regular
it's fizzy.
bourbon.
It's kind of bubbly.
Huh.
How is it?
Whoa.
Oh,
Dude.
it's not bad.
That's not a regular bourbon. What is that?
That's called a Seelbach.
A seal box?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not bad. Now, granted, we're not bartenders. So
Well, I mean, you are.
let's paint the picture here. So Sara Hine is sitting in the room. We're so happy to have you finally.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
And we've been trying to get her on the show for like ever. And she's like been too busy. She's
And we
too
talked
cool.
about it. Yeah.
She's
Too cool.
just too cool for
We
us.
we work with her every once in a while.
Yeah.
Right?
And finally we got her on the show. But
Yeah.
so we're gonna find out all about her. We got plenty of that coming. But she walks in.
Start off with the drink.
She is always looking to push things to the next level. So she comes in the room with
Trendsetter, if you
she
will.
comes in with a kit.
She had a whole package.
She brought in
Yeah.
a bartender kit.
She was like Santa Claus on Christmas Day.
I gotta come with something impressive here. I don't want to be just like everybody else.
So
can't be.
let's explain to us, what was the gift you brought us? Why are we drinking this special concoction today? Talk about it.
Fizzy.
I love bourbon. I do, but sometimes I need a little something extra. And I was I was at the bar once, and I sort of was telling them that I love bourbon and I also love champagne, and they're like, "There's a fucking drink.
Whoa.
Wow.
It's a
And
Seelbach."
so they mixed it?
Yeah.
Champagne and
Champagne
bourbon.
Well,
and
but
bourbon.
it's got some
yeah.
other
So,
stuff.
well, and then I walked away, and I don't know, I had to look it up
Yeah.
and see kind of what it was. But so it's got some Cointreau, and what
Yeah.
else was in there? Some
bitters.
bitters.
And champagne
Yeah,
and
so
bourbon.
this is
Yeah.
kind of a
What's the bourbon in there?
This is Elijah Craig. So
Okay.
last week on the show we had the 51% Club,
We did.
and they
It was one of their top 5, right?
Nicole
Yeah.
listed her top 5 bourbons. One of them was Elijah Craig. So I said, let's pick it up. Let's try
Yeah.
it out. We haven't had it on the show yet, and
It's
it's
good.
tasty, and we've made it have a different profile. So if you're listening, the way this thing tastes is it's got that carbonation from the champagne, and it's got a little bit of that fizzy burn.
You want to know what this tastes like to me?
What's that?
Like watered down Fanta with a bourbon kick.
I'm not sure if that's good.
You totally made it like unfancy.
Yeah.
Like we were getting so fancy
You were.
over here.
I was
You're,
really
like,
trying to dig it up
classing
a
it
notch.
up.
Yeah, I was ready to
Yeah.
take it up a notch in class, and then you just brought us down.
You
Yeah.
were. Hey, well, that's where I live, at the bottom. So
Well,
I
you
love
know.
my Fanta.
It's good for all folks.
Yes. So anyway, we're super excited. Thank you for the gift.
not
Thank
to
you
say
for
I don't
bringing
like it.
something special
Absolutely.
to the table.
It's fantastic.
But for those
It's
listening,
fantastic.
it is fantastic.
right.
For those listening, though, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
Oh, okay. Wow.
I want to know
How
this.
much time do you have? So my name is Sarah, and I'm my background's production.
Yeah.
So I've been mostly producer for about, I don't want to say how long. Actually,
Your experience.
I was going to go there, but then I was like, yeah, I'm experienced. That's right.
She's being humble.
You say
She's young,
many
and
months.
pretty, and wonderful.
Just
We
go
love
with
her.
many months.
Thank
yeah, there
you.
go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, I've been in this business for a long time, though, and I kind of fell into it, I think, as most people really do. I grew up in it. My father was a DP, and so, when I think a lot of people early on, they don't even know this is really an option. I think that's changing a little bit, but certainly when I came into it, it just wasn't really a common profession.
So did you grow up with like camera builds happening in your living room? Like talking, like what was
Yeah.
that like? Like what did you you must have known like, oh, my dad's job's different.
Very
Like,
different, yeah, right.
Talk about that.
I mean, it was just like he would go away, and we'd be like, "What did you do? Where have you been?" It was always something different, something new. So,
That's awesome.
but yeah, I got a lot of training early on.
Nice.
Did you ever get to go on set when you were little?
Yeah, I
What-
did. Yeah.
You got any memories or stories from that? What was that like?
I think the biggest thing is that when I was early on, he was really always trying to teach me the ropes. So as much as I was around. He also was an editor, so he did a lot of posts. So I was kind of around for that as well. But yeah, just I always remember him teaching me how to over under. That was the big thing.
Cable
yes,
wrapping.
Yes.
That's awesome.
It was like, you're not going to go on
turning you
any
into an
set
assistant.
without knowing how to over-under.
He's going to try to get you on there as work, as help.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I did early
Free
on.
labor.
I early on, that's what I first did was I ran
Nice.
cable. I was a cable puller.
Whoa.
You know, on like
Dad
live
was running
stuff.
you on, he was running you on a day rate, but you weren't getting anything
Yeah,
from
right.
the cut.
Oh, man.
Exactly. So that's kind of
awesome.
how I got my start.
Did you start immediately, like, after school and all that, right into the business? Did you start somewhere
You know,
else?
I went to school right after high school. I went to college for fine arts, and I spent a few years kind of figuring out what exactly I wanted to do
Yeah.
with my life, and I wasn't quite sure. So that's when I kind of made a transition and sort of got involved in production. So it's a little different because I had an arts background, and I ended up in the line in production, which most would think is not extremely
You're like the
as much,
organizational
right, exactly,
side,
as much.
yeah.
So I think I've come to appreciate the art behind the production side of things too, though, and I also continue to stretch into like using my creative side
Yeah.
as I'm kind of transitioning.
Absolutely.
But you
So-
talked about meandering, but it seems like as you were meandering after, in with this, art degree and fine arts, whatever, coming back to production is kind of like coming home, right? In a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was kind of a natural. I mean, and so actually when I started, I mean, I really didn't think it was necessarily for the long term. I really just was like, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. And I was actually getting ready to switch my major again to visual communicate. I switched to visual communications, and I was going to switch to TCOM, which was basically production.
Still in the wheelhouse.
Yeah, right. So I was like, I'm not going to switch again. I'm going to go work, and I'm going to see what happens.
Smart move.
So you jump in, you embrace the production lifestyle. Where did you start out? Were you working your way up the ladder? Did you work on films? Were you doing commercials? Give us a little backstory.
PA work?
Yeah, no, I started as a PA. I definitely started as a PA. I'm actually the very first thing I did, Kristen Irwin. I think you guys just had her on.
Yeah.
We did. She's great.
Yeah, so I've known Kristen for a long time. And when I was first starting out, I contacted her and said, hey, I'm doing this. And she said, oh my God, we've got a movie coming to town. And I think you'd dig it.
Do you remember what that movie was?
I do. It's Traffic.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Michael Douglas?
Michael Douglas.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That movie had a couple
God.
scenes that were hard
I love
to watch.
I love the hesitation there. You're like,
Well, what's funny is like a
Yeah.
lot of times lately, people ask me, oh, you've worked on films. What have you worked on? Traffic. They're like, blank stare.
Really?
They're too young.
Oh my God,
Well,
it's a classic.
They were
it's
12.
Like a
unbelievable
modern
film.
classic.
I
Yeah.
agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
it's an unbelievable
So,
film.
anyways,
Whoa.
that was a hell of a first
Yeah.
job to have.
Yeah, what a heavy
Yeah.
film.
Yeah, no, and I was on for 5 weeks just for the Cincinnati portion,
Yeah,
but
okay.
but there was, and I was in the office, so I learned a ton, which I thought was great. At first, I was sort of sad that I wasn't on set, but I got to go out, and when I got to go out, I was actually just visiting. They're like, "Oh, let's take Sarah out to set," And on the flip side, I was learning so much being in the office.
And for those listening, the scene when Traffic was made, so Cincinnati and the over the Rhine community has gone through a transformation and kind of a gentrification thing. I know there's some good and bad sides to that, but when they were filming Traffic, it was the hood.
Yeah,
I mean, there was
absolutely.
no probably wasn't like the number one destination for a young female to just
No.
hang out.
You didn't walk around at night by yourself.
So was that
No.
was that experience, as a young person getting into the business, all of a sudden you're thwarted and brought onto a set in the worst neighborhood in the Midwest?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there is that. I mean, but all of it was so overwhelming. I mean, that was, I'm talking, I was like 21 maybe.
Yeah.
I was 21 years old, and I really had only done, I ran Parabola, like on the side of the football games before that, and pulled cable. This was like the first thing
But that
I'd ever.
over-under was on
Yeah,
point.
exactly. I'm so
Just in
glad I
case
had
you
that
needed to
down,
jump in.
Dad.
Yeah. Man, so that's
Yeah.
a hell of a first film.
So
to
yeah,
jump
so
into.
it was overwhelming on a lot of levels. To have this crew come in and just like descend, and you see how much goes, and you realize like what all those names on the credits are there for.
Yeah.
So it was pretty
Big
amazing.
production.
So you jump in, you saw an overview from like the big picture. Then what? What'd you do?
So
Where'd
then,
you go?
then I was like, I was sold pretty much, I think, at that point. And I didn't really think too much about going back to school or what else. I just I was like, okay, I'm in it. Like, this is pretty amazing. But from there, I just started doing a lot more local, stuff, I kind of got my name out, and I was doing a lot more. So I ended up being a lot more on the commercial side of things, because that's just happens to be was really big in Cincinnati. There's a lot of movies coming back in, which is awesome, but at the time there's a lot of commercial work. So
yeah, and for those listening, we've said it before, but Cincinnati's home to Procter & Gamble, Cow Brands, a lot of sort of CPG companies that do branding, packaging, and they have to shoot a lot of commercials for these things. So
for anybody that doesn't know what CPG is, that is what
consumer
packaged goods. Yeah. Sorry,
nerd speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Your
anyway,
lingo here.
Right.
But even outside of P&G, there's a lot of companies that are based here in Cincinnati that they need production. So
Right.
that's why we're able to sustain a production environment from that angle. So is there anything that pops out? Was there any project along the way where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, or oh my God, I can't believe I'll never do that again? Sort of moment.
Every project's like that. Seriously, every project's like that. Every time it's like a roller coaster ride. You get on and you're kind of climbing to the top, and you're like, shit, what have I gotten myself into?
It's like a roller coaster without track, basically.
Right, yeah, right. Exactly. And then you're like,
Got an idea where we want to be.
I'm never going to do this again.
Yeah.
And then like as soon as it's over, you're like, okay, so what's next?
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
I mean,
the cool thing about commercials, though, is you can get a lot of experience in a short amount of time. Because they're what?
Absolutely.
With you in the production realm, you're on far before, but then a little bit after. So
Yeah, right. But I mean,
Couple weeks
it
each
could
one.
be, it kind of depends. And I've done, longer and shorter. But yeah, a couple weeks beforehand. And then, you got a 1 to 3 day run of production, and then you're wrapping out and done.
Yeah.
better than months and months on a
Yeah,
feature.
no.
So
exactly.
I think I know what the answer to this is, but so everybody listening, we work with Sara. We'll bring her on as producer. Obviously, you know that me and Alex work together, but am I right that the first project that all three of us worked on was the toothbrush thing?
No. One
No.
before that. Floors.
Yeah.
Which one?
Armstrong.
Arms.
No,
no.
Shaw.
Shaw.
Oh,
That's
okay.
right.
Another
yeah.
home.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so
Then-
for me, that
Right.
project is divided into two parts.
Yep.
There was everything we shot in New York, and
Yeah, which is
that was like
time-lapse
a
with...
whole weird experience.
Which, by the way, we need to get Angus.
I already talked to him.
Okay, cool.
Angus Oborn's going to be on the show.
DP from New York.
New York, DP. He's actually shooting some reality stuff right now.
Nice.
And he's from Australia, so he's got the best accent.
Yeah. So
He's
you did
handsome.
you did that beforehand, New York, and then you came
Yes.
back here,
And we had to do another shoot.
which was all like the lifestyle
Yeah, in a
reenactment
house.
stuff. Yeah. Which
Yeah.
Sarah was heavily involved in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did that start? I want to know, because I don't know.
You want to know the real
beginning.
story? Let me
Yeah.
tell you the real story.
Yeah.
So I'm a part of this project that was actually really big. And we took over Grand Central Station. This was with Powerhouse,
Yeah, I guess
is the agency here in
Grand
town.
Central's pretty big.
And so we, for the brand, got into Grand Central after hours when it was closed. And we literally had full run of Grand Central Station, which was pretty amazing. It was pretty crazy. But we were working through the night. And as you guys know, that is just stupid. Like, I don't mean that this project was stupid. Like, no one should ever work through the night. Like, I don't understand how
I don't
third
know.
shift.
I
Like,
love it.
oh
I
man,
dig it.
it wears
Yeah.
you out. It's for me.
It does wear you
I
out.
almost died. Like after 3 days, I woke up and I was so sick. But anyway,
Yeah.
but it was fun. We had a lot of fun, and like people start to get really kooky at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Like everybody's just like best friends. So it was a lot of fun from that angle. But
Yeah.
so that project was kind of happening, and it was like this big thing that was moving. And then it came time where we had to get a house in Cincinnati. So, finding a house is not easy when it comes to production.
Well, I remember seeing the initial scouts and stuff, and we had to decide on location.
Well, no,
it was
that-
like 3, 4, 5.
Not
you know.
only did it have to be a house, it had to be the right house with the right
It
look.
couldn't be too affluent or too,
Yeah.
lower middle.
So
or
there was
whatever. It had
that
to be,
whole
yeah.
there was that whole challenge, and then we were working with another producer at the time, Erica, and she did a killer job in New York. And basically, this thing was coming to a head, and we felt like we needed a little more manpower, a little more firepower. And that's when Sara walks in the room, and she was like, "Okay, everybody, here's what I think we might need to do." And so my guess is that if I were you were probably looking at me, and you were probably like, "Oh God, what have I gotten into?" What was your first impression?
Oh my God.
What did you think? What did you
Okay,
really think?
okay.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be real because I can say this now
Be
because
honest.
yeah.
Now we're all on good
But
terms.
man,
yeah.
there was a moment there where I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what if this guy
Does
knows what
anybody-
he's doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
love
Okay.
it.
That was my first impression. But we had like a 5-minute conversation. It was like you just like barreled through everything. Like, they're gonna add, and it's gonna be this, and they're gonna do this, and it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my producer like alarm bells are going off. Like, oh shit.
Yep.
Oh,
For anybody
man.
that hasn't met Brandon, he is a ball of energy.
Yeah.
He's
Most
he's
days.
Yeah,
If you really
most
know me
days.
like these two do, then
No.
you'll see my,
Okay,
I'm
okay,
seeing my
that-
other side.
professional sense.
Yeah, but you'll see
Right.
because you two have seen like my bipolar
Oh, yeah.
side where
Yeah.
I'm ready to.
I
But
can't
that's
wait to talk
because-
about Kill Game.
That's the crash after your like energy high.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, it happened.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So then, but
That project turned out great.
it turned out great. And the thing is, I think it was actually a really good first step for me. I come from a really traditional production background. I'm not going to lie. I did Traffic. It was huge. And from there, I went on to do like pretty high-end traditional commercial work.
Right.
So,
Fancy.
yeah, right. Well, Dog and Pony Show, it was the whole nine.
Yeah.
And you had big budgets, and there was a really prescribed formula for how to do
Yeah,
this.
For sure.
I think there's some really amazing things about that. I do, but I think actually this was great because I was already sort of heading there because so much has changed. Like that was early on, and it's not the same. It's so much more accessible. It's so much more.
And Sarah met me in the midst of what we call the scrappy renaissance.
Right.
When production companies had to get smart and get nimble and move quick
Yeah.
and get things done with production quality, but at
That's
a competitive budget.
That's one of the things you bring that up, and I'm not going to go into this right now, but through the last couple of projects I've done and conversations with directors and producers, and just a few other big dudes I've heard talking, like the idea holds true that constraints breed creativity. Like when you have all the tools, it's not always as creative. Like you just do whatever
Yeah.
you want, but when you're forced to do things with a
true.
lower budget, like you, Mr. Brandon, you come up with these crazy ideas that just like happen to work. Like cut out cardboard signs and crazy dolly moves and
I'll
stuff.
take the
Yeah.
big budget as well.
Right.
No,
yeah.
no.
No, I think that's true, and I think that was actually like a turning point a little bit for me to say like, how do you take what's going on, the new thing that's going on that's really awesome, and pair that sort of with the old school, the things that we've learned that do work, and find that middle ground. And I think that's what
Yeah.
we've done. Actually, that's why we work well together.
And I think to give people some context, when she says traditional production, you're talking about production houses that have multiple editors, multiple animators, multiple producers, like sort of a big operation.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
they're-
like it
they're
wasn't
running.
uncommon to have
Right.
a commercial, a 30-second commercial or 60-second commercial, 3-day shoot, 30, 40-person crew,
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
into a house, completely take everything
Yeah.
out, paint it, change it.
Drill holes in walls.
Right,
everything.
exactly.
But-
that was not uncommon.
Right. And even on top of that, though, you're talking about the crew, but the production companies, a lot
Yeah.
of the people you're working with, you're talking 10 to 12 on staff,
Big
maybe
houses.
Right,
Right.
yeah, I mean,
You're
right,
big.
exactly.
more. And
a
so
lot
when our
bigger.
first project, she's coming in the door and she's like, okay, there's you
and,
and who else?
and you.
And I'm
And
like, well,
Ryan.
there's Ryan. He's our motion design
Yeah.
guy. And she's like, and I'm like,
Everyone else is
like-
piecemeal.
I was like, there's
Yeah.
Alex. He's
Yeah.
awesome.
But I'm not full
But
time.
and so what our whole model that we started our
Right.
company built on a modular model. We think of ourselves very much like Legos. And so for us, if we need to get big, sure, we just make a few phone calls to some friends and we scale up. Now we're a 20-person crew in New York.
Yeah.
Or if we need to run and gun for an Instagram campaign, we just do it.
Yeah, no, and
It's
I
all
think
by the
there is
network.
something really, it's not just beautiful about it, but necessary about it.
Yeah.
But also the traditional model, like you said, you're talking about broadcast, 30, 60
Right.
spots, and this was a like 2.5 minute web.
That's
kind
the
of,
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking
What do you call
about
this?
back at
Yeah.
that time, right? Primarily, everything was broadcast, and the media. The cost to buy the media was way more than
Astronomical.
right. Exactly. So by comparison, what of course you're going to spend a lot on a production because ultimately you got to spend a lot to go put it on air. So.
Yeah.
Now that's just not true, and you have to have a lot more of it, and so I get that. So I think people who've come from that world are trying to have to reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
Because instead of spending $1 million on a broadcast spot, they're now doing, 10, or
Right.
8 web spots and one smaller broadcast spot.
Exactly. I mean, back in the day, it was like you
With
would
the
do
same
this,
budget.
and it was like it was going to run for the year.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd do 2. I don't know.
Exactly.
But not right.
Right. Well, I think what I like about what I'm so excited about having you on the show is, and I think we've told the backstory here. You grew up in this industry. You've worked on big sets where you've got to do the whole rigmarole with the full crew, the 20, 30, 40 person crew. You've worked on run and gun crews and sets. You've produced things personally on your own that are 1 and 2 person deals. So you have this broad experience, which I really appreciate, and I think our listeners will appreciate. So my question now is, from that experience and what you're doing now, what are some things that you've picked up? What are some takeaways, some key takeaways? We got a lot of filmmakers listening, and they might be, running a film company in Wichita. They might be running a film company in Waukesha. What are some key takeaways? You've worked with a lot of different production companies. They all look different. They all act different. What are the things that really matter? And what are the things as a producer you want to tell people, hey, guys, you need to be doing this?
Oh, pre-production. I think the thing now is because we can do things so much faster, because things are more accessible, people just want to shoot. They wanna
Pre-production's
shoot.
not important at all.
No, people are like, what are you, there's this thing you speak of,
Yeah.
pre-production,
It's a waste of time.
Right.
But in
it
reality,
drives me crazy. There's nothing cheaper and nothing cheaper really than doing pre-production planning.
So when you say pre-production, a lot of people get turned off of, meetings.
Okay, let's not. Yeah, no, and there is a lot of discussion that goes into it, but I don't like the word meeting really. I think it's about really developing what your idea is developing fully what you want to say. People start trying to do that in post. And I'm not saying there's always room for that. The story is going to grow and it's going to evolve. And a lot of that happens when you shoot and some of that happens when you're in edit. And I think that's true. But I do think that there's not enough time spent on really developing what you want to do and how to execute it beforehand, because you don't want to be it drives me nuts standing on set having conversations that should have been had.
I was gonna
and it's
say
a
that.
waste of time for the crew,
and you end up spending more money, right?
and you end up spending more money.
Now, do you find yourself as a producer, do you feel like you have to fully understand and hold dear the create, like you have to get it?
I do, but
talk about it.
I don't know that everybody does, but that's just the way my brain works. I am best when I know all the elements, because as a producer, at any minute somebody's going to ask you something and I want to be able to answer intelligently, because my job is to not have to bother other people in a moment that's inappropriate. So for me to know everything I can possibly know up front, consider things, that's how I roll. I don't know that everyone does that, but
So I don't know that we've actually ever talked about what a producer does.
Oh yeah, that's a really good, because it's such a catch-all phrase.
Yeah.
And I feel like some are
It's bullshit.
some are different than others. Like, can you talk about some of the details that go in from, way in pre through all the way through post,
Yeah.
and are there different types?
Yeah.
There's different, because if you watch a movie, everyone's a producer.
Oh God.
We've had this conversation
But
before.
I know some producers specifically, like some guys that are around here, like we've worked. Alex Parks, great guy from Cincinnati area, just moved out west. He's traditionally focused a lot on post.
Yeah.
And some people focus on the pre side. Some people are just during production. Like, what do they all
All
do?
right, we need you to break it down. Dispel for us. Producer, what types, what they do. Go.
Okay. I think that's a really broad question, so I will just do my best from my experience. But it is different. In television, television shows, the producer has a whole different role, and I'm not even going to go into that. Film producers, are at the top of the food chain. They have, production managers underneath them and who are doing more of the work. So I'm going to focus on commercial production, because that's kind of my background.
No doubt.
But I think that the difference is really just in your experience. Like a producer can take a job all the way from pre-production through post-production. Typically, like an agency producer might really sometimes do post-production, and like the line producer would just be responsible for the shoot portion. But it kind of depends. Like my experience, I worked for an agency, so I've done some agency producing, I've done line producing, I think it's all about your experience. And I think the same thing applies. The big thing is like, you can't teach people. It's not you. Boy, I'm struggling.
So producing's complicated.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, if you're good at anticipating, if you're good at soaking in the details and understanding how they affect everybody else, you can do all of that. I mean, that's kind of, so, I mean, I think you can be an agency producer, you can be a line producer, you can be a post producer.
I like what you said about soaking in the details and anticipating what's coming next.
Yeah, I mean, because you have to be able to look and say, oh, you just make some offhanded comment about this thing that you want to do. And what happens is in my brain, I'm going, ooh, Alex needs to know about that because he's going to have something to say about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's going to say about it. I really don't know. My job's not to know everything. My job is to know that it will affect people and that who I need to talk to. I think that, so producer is very loose.
Is it safe to say that, like in a general sense, no matter what part of the spectrum you're on, from pre-production to post-production, the general title of producer is to just get it done, like facilitate the actual doing of whatever in whatever sense, budget, gear, crew.
Right, like to oversee.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
You're like the top dog.
Well,
she is in charge.
I mean, I don't know. I would say that there's some debate about who's in charge, really. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all there to get a beautiful piece, and that, I think, is a collaborative effort, and a lot of that comes from directors and DPs. And I think the role of the producer is really just to make sure that's smooth and everyone has the information they need to do the best job that they can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and what I think from a director's point of view, what I think and the way I view a producer is, to me, the producer is my accountability. The producer is the one who, hey, Brandon, that's a great idea, but here's what that's going to cost. Hey, Brandon, that's awesome, but here's how much time that's going to take. Hey, Brandon, that's wonderful that you think that's going to happen, but guess what? I've got 5 guys in a truck.
Back down to
I've
earth,
got 5
buddy.
guys in a truck, and we're going to have to do a company move. You do know that, right?
Right.
And so that's where that dialogue, and to me, it's so important to have a great relationship with your producer. And so I love working with producers that I have good chemistry with. Like you have to be able to look at somebody and say, I want this to be red, and they have to look at it and go, oh, I know what you mean by red. Because if they look at your red and they think it's blue, like bad things happen.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about
that's a
working
good
with Sara.
tangent though, is the relationship between the producer and all the different parts of the crew, because it's different for everyone.
To me, I think the relationship between the director and the producer is almost exactly like the relationship between the DP and the director.
Yeah.
Because it's all about understanding a common language. So, like, for instance, we've talked about this before. If I ask for an ECU, an extreme close-up.
Yours is different than everyone else's.
My extreme close-up is really extreme versus a lot of directors. Like, I want to be, like, if I say I want an extreme close-up on the eye, like, I don't really want to see the eyelid at all. I just really want to be, like, on the iris.
Macro, yeah.
And same way, if I tell Sara, I want this to be in and out, like, that has meaning. And so she knows if I'm like, hey, I want to be in and out, she knows, like, oh, crap, Brandon wants to run and gun this shoot. He knows he wants to be in and out. He wants to do it quick, clean, and efficient.
But that lingo is developed.
Absolutely. If there was somebody I've never worked with before and I said in and out, they might not know what I mean. Or if I said whatever the phrase is.
They take you to a burger shop in LA,
Exactly. Exactly. So to me, that's the importance of it. And that's why I think, all production companies, all directors, all videographers need to develop people in their lives and have relationships with producers and whatnot that they are speaking the same language. Because if you're not, things get messy.
Yeah, and I think that is the trick for being a producer too. It's about being very highly sensitive to the situation and knowing how to read people and knowing when to ask questions and when to figure it out. It's knowing it's
You're like a
time.
therapist.
It's time. You are
Yeah.
your little therapist. You know, I mean, you're trying to. I was just like want to make everyone happy and want to make it smooth as possible. And to me, like a shoot day is like the whole thing. It's kind of like this is where I got into like, production is sort of an art because it's like a symphony in a lot of ways.
You're the conductor, yeah.
You know, it's like
both.
you just think through all this stuff and you're like, okay, and then this is going to happen and then these people are going to walk in and then this is going to be here and they're going to know what they're doing and bum, 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 bum. Like all this stuff and you're orchestrating.
Do you find yourself, because you work with a lot of different people, so do you find yourself, depending on who you're working with, you have to make a mental shift and be like, oh, I'm working with him or her today. Therefore, I need to be like, and you kind of, do you find yourself doing that?
I think the more you do it, the faster you do that though, because I don't really think about it so much anymore, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's not even true. Just like, okay, if I'm working with you as a director versus a different director, but also just all the personalities that are on a set that you need to do things for you, you know? And so you have to be like,
you have to be everyone's best friend.
Or you just play all these different roles, and it's kind of a little manipulative.
Okay.
Crazy.
So I want to get down to a couple key takeaways. I think we've got some people listening to the show who are like maybe interested. They want to get in. Okay, so you were born into this thing. You kind of
family business.
Yeah, you were born into it, but you fought it a little bit.
Yeah.
But then you were like, no.
Oh, right.
This is where I'm at.
Yeah.
We've established you've got an immense experience. So talking to somebody who's like, I want to get into film, somebody who is your young 21-year-old self,
right?
Specifically wants to be a producer.
What do they need to know? And here's I'm going to put you on the spot. If you can do this, you're amazing. If not, we'll figure it out.
Shit.
Can I do this? Is this okay?
Yeah.
Now I feel bad that I put you on the spot.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to do it because you're amazing.
So terrible.
I'll sit back and laugh.
Do you have like what are your you got 5 things? Because that would work out for my top 5. What are the things? We'll just say what are the things. If they happen to be 5, then I luck out. But what are the things that they need to know right now from your experience? You're talking to your 21-year-old self who wants to be a producer.
Right.
What do you need to know? Go.
Okay. I think the first thing is just to not forget why you're there. I see this all the time. People really, they lose sight of the fact they're like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. No, none of that fucking matters. Can I say that?
Sure. We'll just we'll put an E on the iTunes episode.
All right. Sorry.
Yeah.
We are there to make an amazing piece of work. And I think everyone's job is to contribute to that. And I think if you remember that, you'll do well. I think that was one.
Good.
Okay, one down.
That.
The second thing is anticipate. Just anticipate. Just think. I like make a game in my head, and it's kind of an obsession, but it's a game. Like, how many things can I think of that would go wrong, could go wrong if I don't anticipate them ahead of time and avoid them? And that, I think, if you can just sit there and look around and make a game out of it and say, okay, this person might move that, and that's going to, or I need to pick this up, or I need to be out of the way, or I need to help this, whatever.
Yeah. How is that washer going to get back to the rental shop?
Right, exactly. Like anything you can do to, and somebody told, so I'm going to just make that.
Are these guns safe?
Oh, God. That's why you have an armorer. Yeah.
I'm going to make that too. Again, I do think making it into a game is helpful for me. I sometimes think about it like that. Yeah. The third thing I think is, I just had it. I might need to drink some more.
That's fine. Yeah. Let this.
That's great. All right,
let's just call it seal box.
Yeah,
let the seal box take hold.
So far, we could stop it too. This is great feedback. So it's all about know why you're there. Realize, look, guys, we're not in a factory pushing widgets.
No, you guys are.
We're doing cool
stuff.
You're
lucky to be in this profession.
You're blessed.
Yeah, take
Two, anticipate what's going to go wrong. That's the role of a producer.
I think that's the role of anybody on a film set.
It
really.
Is.
No matter what your position, you have to be able to look ahead and say, depending on my position, I got to be ready for this.
Yeah.
If you're not,
it's great.
Shit's going down.
I love, I'm going to just make this into my third. It might not really be different, but I love when people say, what can I do? I'm ready. I'm here. I can help. I appreciate that.
Make yourself available.
But what I would like is to not look around and see garbage around while you're asking me if there's anything you can do.
I like it.
To help. Like, look around before you ask me. if you can help
Nice.
me
So
and
how about-
do the things
how
that
about
you
We
know
can
can be
distill
done.
that to use common sense.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
sometimes
that's
people are in
good. What
such
about
a hurry
or get
to-
your hands dirty?
Get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
Either one.
It's one of the reasons I love working
in
in Cincinnati in a lot of ways is because people are very much team players.
Yep.
And I do love that. But yeah, it goes that same thing.
We've
you know?
talked about that. I think on the Kristen Irwin episode about how the sense of community here is super
It's
strong.
great.
Like, everyone's willing to jump in.
Yeah.
There's so many people that are willing to, if you've built up the trust, jump on projects for little to no pay, knowing that they'll develop into something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if
build
you're-
build some experience.
If you're on set, you're in a PA or an associate producer, you're part of the team, and you hear the producer or the director say something to the effect of, "Ah, man, we really need a blank." Find a way to figure out where that blank is, and you bring that thing to the table,
look for
and
it
you will be
right.
hired.
I
right?
know, yeah, and even before that, I would say too. Sometimes when I'm standing there, and again, this is like that little game thing, but I'll look and I can see somebody looking around, and I'm like, "What are they looking for? What are they looking for?
piece it
Oh,
together.
they want to stand up on some. We need an
Yeah.
apple box. You
Yeah.
know, like whatever. Like that's what I mean by anticipating. Like you can see when people are looking for something or thinking about something, and like trying to figure out what they're doing and be there with it is an
right.
amazing skill that people will be like, I want this person
No
on every
doubt.
job.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest thing I learned as because I started out in the grip and electric realm, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It's like your key grip or your gaffer. If they're worried about all the other stuff. So if you've got the common sense things locked down, and the C stands are standing by, and the apple boxes are there ready to go, and nobody has to go running,
Yeah.
you're golden.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. So the first three have a lot of relevance to the actual being on set. I'm going to push for number 4. Do you got anything? Because you deal a lot with budgets, and I know that we can keep this conversation going on and on about budgets. But what's the one takeaway after making a bunch of budgets and having to hold people to the fire on their budgets? For our 4th, what's something you would say about when it comes to the money, when it comes to the budgets?
I think that you can, people sometimes ask, how much is that going to cost? And I think it's like, or they'll say a budget, sorry, this budget's really low. Can we do it for that? We can do it for any budget that you have. It's just relative,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the big thing when you're producing and you're asked to do a budget is to think about all of the caveats or all of the assumptions that go into that budget, because people get in trouble because they make a budget to fit and they don't call out all the things that they've assumed to make that budget. And then they get their ass handed to them when people have a certain expectations. Well, wait, what do you mean I don't get to? Because they forget all of that. Once you get in production, they don't care that we agreed on this low price and we're doing this for this budget. They want to know why they don't have options, or why they don't have this, or why they don't have a full spread of breakfast, or So I think the big thing is you can do production at any level, but there are trade-offs, and you have to be very clear about what those are.
Okay, great. So clarify the budget. I think that's great.
Because you might get
That's huge.
for
actually.
me, like on my end and dealing with her, I might have less camera equipment, less crew.
Right.
On your end, you may not be able to afford the talent you want.
For the record,
The
Alex
locations
never
you want.
gets less camera and less crew. He always wants more. More.
I don't know about that.
Jeez.
I think
This guy.
he's been getting pretty good. He was so far as to say he would shoot Kill Game on an iPhone.
I'll shoot Kill Game.
That's a
on
whole nother show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
We can talk about this
before we
all
keep
day.
going.
Okay, so we got one more. We're one away.
God.
We're one away. So we're talking about appreciate what you're doing for a living.
Okay,
We
got
are
it.
not squares. We are the circles.
You're lucky.
Doing really cool stuff.
Yep.
2, anticipate.
Anticipate.
If you're going to be on set, you're going to be in production, you got to anticipate what's going on. That's how you provide value as a producer. Number 3,
Hire back. Use common sense or
use
get your
common
hands
sense.
dirty.
Get your hands dirty, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Garbage needs to be picked up, pick it up. If you see something that needs to be done, get it done.
Yeah.
Number 4, for crying out loud, clarify your budgets.
Yeah.
Yep. Stick to it.
Let people know what they're getting for what they're spending.
Yeah.
Don't give your stuff away for free.
Wow, this is like a show. We got something here.
Can you produce this for $25,000? Absolutely. But here's what we can do
Yeah.
for
Yes.
$25,000.
Here's what's
This
gonna
is
last.
what it's
Okay.
going to be like.
Yeah.
So number 5. This is. I feel there's a lot
I
of
feel
pressure
like
on
I've
this
got
one.
number 5.
Ooh.
Okay,
Feel
number
like I've
5.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a little story about when I was starting out in producing. I'd already done production, PA, production manager, whatever. I worked with a really lovely director, Cliff Schwander. And I was on a job one time, and I saw one of the grips moving this big ladder, and I ran over and I started helping him, and I was like, "Oh, here," this is a bad tendency,
Mm-hmm.
And Cliff comes up to me, and he goes, "Don't ever let me see you do that again." And I was like, "I don't understand. Like, why? Like, he needed help, and I was there."
This is why we hire these people.
Right. And Cliff said, "That is not your job. Your job, if you're doing that, you're not doing your job." And I think that's really hard to learn, because as somebody who really came up being so hands-on and always wanting to be involved and helped, when do you cross over to that point where you're like, your job is actually to be standing there paying attention to the client, paying attention to the director, and thinking about other things, not worrying about jumping up and doing right. And that is really hard. And I think the thing that goes along with that I would say is like, somebody also always told me, your job is to impress the person directly above you. That's the person that's going to hire you. Don't try to impress the director if you're a PA. Don't try to impress the producer if you're a PA. Impress the fucking coordinator who's hiring you. They're the one who's going to hire you again.
So number 5, know your role.
Yeah.
Know your role and play to it.
Yeah.
Play to it with strength.
Don't slow your roll, but know your role.
Yeah, don't slow your roll, but know your role. No, that's great. That's great feedback. And I think if you're listening,
it's almost a handbook on how to become a producer.
It's amazing.
5. I got them all.
Wow, you got it.
I was a little worried.
I mean, I'm sure we could make 100, but some of them, tie into the rest. And
well, and here's the thing. I think that a lot of people think about production and they think of cameras and they think of acting and all this sorts of thing, but
that's
really
a small part of it, man.
The glue that makes this world go round in the world of production are the producers.
Yeah, really, seriously.
To be honest, that's where it happens. So if you want to get into production, if you're looking for a job that's creative, and you maybe you're not the most artistic person in the world, or maybe you are. Regardless, you're organized. You have a sense of knowing your surroundings. You can adapt with different people. Like, those are qualities that you could fit right into, and you could be working in this industry.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think it's important piece to remember as a producer. You absolutely are part of the creative team. Mm-hmm. Your role is different, and everyone has their role. But sometimes I think it's hard, and I think early on I really muscled through like the more like logistics end, before you realize like it really is an art, and you really are part of the creative team. It's just everyone has like sort of their different add to that, and my ad I think is to help bring it to fruition and to clarify things and to really build on things, versus maybe being the one who has the initial or actually does any of the real work.
Well, it's
Hey, I feel the same way as director.
No.
Once we get on set, I feel like I'm just sitting there watching people do stuff.
Yeah.
Well, by that point, you've got all the pieces laid out, and it should just assemble itself.
Yeah.
You're just there to make sure that it does.
That's a really good point too.
Right?
If you've done your job as a producer, and I've been on plenty of shoots that are a little rocky, but I think the ultimate goal is, again, and this just goes back to the pre-production. The ultimate goal is that by the time you get to the shoot, you don't have a job really, because you've done all your work. And
ideally,
that's the goal, and that is
Sure.
never 100%. But
producer is a weird role. It's like part conductor, part cheerleader, part architect, part accountant.
Yeah,
right, and they fill in the gaps. I think too. That's another thing. Is like the producer sort of fills in the gaps where the communication or is lacking. And that's where you get to, I think, really express your creativity a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Those gaps.
You're the hub. You're like the router of the internet, which is the film community.
I mean, honestly, I have such a hard time articulating that to people. Ask a lot of times.
Yeah.
We don't have a whole hour and 2 people, asking me questions. This makes it a lot easier. I'll just refer them to this podcast from now on.
There you go.
Do you want to know what I do? Listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Because it is hard to articulate. And you're right. There's a lot of people out there saying, oh, executive producer, and a lot of times, sometimes they just give those titles away, which I think there's been some changes on that because I
Yeah.
think some other producers are a little bit like, whoa.
But for the most part, and this was to a point we talked about with clarifying producer, can we assume executive producer means you're funding it?
Yeah, I think
Money.
generally speaking, I think
financing.
in commercial world, executive producer is a little different. And again, I'm talking from my own experience with movies. You know, yeah, I think primarily, but in the world of commercial production, I think the executive producer truly is more an overseer of almost like more of an account. You know, like
Sure.
they're looking at it from the big picture and they're helping to make sure that from a company standpoint, this makes sense.
Yeah, and a client standpoint.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
In a smaller
So-
house, the executive producer
Sure.
might be the owner of the production
Yeah, right,
company.
exactly.
that
So I
makes sure-
think
yeah.
there's a big role for executive producer in commercial production.
Yeah.
Cool.
From then down, the different roles, it just gets more compartmentalized.
Yeah, right,
So
exactly.
pretty-
You just
yeah.
have a smaller, you're more focused on a specific, like for a
Yep.
line producer, you're more focused on one particular project, bringing that to fruition.
Cool.
So,
Excellent.
Very
So
cool.
speaking of creativity, let's talk a little bit. We talked a little bit about where you came from.
right.
Let's talk a little bit about where you're going, Miss Sara.
We're here.
So for some of you, me and Sarah have had some conversations, and at one point, I'll just let you know that she was like, "I'm done with this. I'm out of." She was like, "I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm leaving. I'm
We talked
done."
about that too.
And
yeah.
so
Well,
she
there's another interest, right?
Yeah, she
so
likes
apart from
fashion.
film,
Well, there's lots of interest.
yeah,
I think
but
this is the
there's
thing,
another
though.
artistic.
But one of
interest.
them is fashion, and
Right.
she's always has like the coolest looks. And I was so excited to show her my boots today because I was like, check out, look, I'm up in my look. So she's always well put together, and so she was exploring this world in fashion.
I love how you're telling her story about
I
it.
know.
but
It's
I'm just
great.
saying.
It's great.
I'm
I
just
like
saying.
it.
So I'm telling you what I'm hearing on the other end of the
Yeah,
fence.
yeah,
So, and of course, I'm terrified because I'm like,
We're gonna lose her.
You're one of my favorite producers.
Yeah, it was
What do
scary.
you mean you're going to go explore fashion in New York?
I was scared.
So help me, or let's tell the listeners. Let's share. This is part of your story. So you have this moment, and you're kind of like, maybe I want to explore some other stuff or whatever. But then ultimately, you're on the show and you're producing
Silly.
more than ever. So give us a quick synopsis of your tangent, and then bring us into this really exciting moment you're in now, where I think you've even launched an LLC.
Uh-huh.
Go.
I did. Yeah. Okay. So I think anyone who has a lot of heart and passion and like really, loves a lot of things has a moment sometimes where they're like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Is this enough? Am I doing enough? Am I doing the right thing? And I think I had that moment for, a couple years, maybe.
Crisis.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Early midlife crisis. I was like,
to give you context, for at least 2 years, Sarah would precede every job request with, "Well, I'm not producing anymore,
Well, no,
but I'll do this one for you."
I don't know if it was that. It was. I don't know if. Yeah. Maybe. I guess. Yeah.
people would be like, "Oh, so are you back?"
I don't know if I left yet. Yeah.
Not sure. I mean, I'm doing this.
Okay.
one, whatever.
Limbo.
Okay, so
Yeah, you're in limbo.
So I have some other things that I care about, and fashion being one of them. And so I did. I started to pursue that. I applied to Parsons in New York, and I was accepted. And that was a hard call when I realized, though, that I just needed to define a little bit more of like what I was after, because I felt like I was just going to jump to another. I love that. I'm not going to let it go. I do it. I still do it. I sew. That's kind of not going anywhere. But do I want to make this jump into this whole other industry? Am I running away from something, or am I running towards something?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I realized I was running away from something. I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just wanted to make sure I was doing enough.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
And you realized you found enough.
Well, I had to
expression
figure
there?
out what it was that I really felt like I was meant to do or wanted to do, or what it was that I was like, what is it that's like eating at me that says like I'm not doing enough? And I think that was just like, I want to make people feel shit. I want to make people care about things. I think, and myself included, I mean, apathy, I think, is a really huge problem right now. There's so much coming at us all the time that it's easy to be apathetic. It's hard to kind of push past that. So, and that was kind of what, I mean, I feel something when I look at amazing fashion or fabric or the way it moves, or, you know, I feel something. And so I think I was drawn to that. But when I defined that, I also said, like, whoa, I am not in the wrong business. I am not in the wrong business. I'm just not doing, I'm maybe not doing what I want to do in it. So yeah. So then when I crystallized that and decided to stay, that's when I decided, like, I'm going to stop being a freelancer, and I'm going to start being a business, and I'm going to be more intentional about what I do. And I'm going to be intentional about what I choose and what projects I work on. And I'm going to start to shift into directing more of my own stuff instead of producing other people's stuff.
Nice.
Yes.
So what type of projects, what does that look like? What do you, I don't know if you want to distill that so far. But
yeah, I mean, I'd say it's really early, because this is all this is all just happening in the last couple of months, which is amazing. Well, it feels good to finally, like, feel like there's movement on that and clarify, like,
sure.
okay.
Well, and the thing to clarify as well that she didn't say is, as soon as she made this decision,
oh, right.
the phone just started blowing up,
Yeah, right.
and this
goes.
girl is getting calls from all over the place, and people are like, "Hey, we want your point of view, and we want you to be a part of our project." And I think that's what's really cool.
It's like the old saying in the freelance world, like, if you're not working and you want to work, just plan a vacation.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So, but does it look like more or less commercial stuff, more or less dramatic stuff?
Less.
More,
I mean, I would say right now, actually, what's interesting is right now it's still a lot of producing other people's stuff, and it's still a lot of commercial stuff. But I'm looking at it differently, and I'm taking things away from it that I think I'm going to be able to use, that are going to make me stronger. And I'm thinking about that in a different way that I wasn't before. Yeah. You know, before it was like I was so focused on just doing an excellent job for this thing. I wasn't thinking about how to translate that into something for myself. And now I am. And so that, I think the things that I'm doing now are still really beneficial, which is why I really like the working with people who are doing more, less standard, more pushing, you know, scary things sometimes. You look at it and go, oh God. They'll send me like a reference and go, we want to do something like this. Right. And I'm like, oh, okay. How do we do that? Which, by the way, I think for people starting out is sometimes like they assume everybody knows what they're doing all the time. Not true. Every time is like, every time you have to figure out, how would we do this? That's part of the fun of it. So anyway.
Yeah. That could be like a number 6 though on the list.
Yeah.
Is
a bonus?
No, is own it. Yeah.
Bonus.
Just own it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, dude, you got to do you.
Well, the thing I'm excited about is the space where, you know, especially with Sara, she brings a lot of interesting things to the table. She's buttoned up, and like, I know without a doubt, like, literally I referenced a toothbrush project. I did not have capacity to even deal with that project. I literally called Sara and was like, make this go away. And I'm pretty sure I didn't do anything until I showed up on set. And even then, I don't know that I did anything.
Oh, that's not true.
But it was amazing how you just, like, got it done. But the thing that I really appreciate is, and I feel like this was a shared experience on Kill Game, is that when somebody as a producer has the confidence to get things done, but then they also have good insight, it opens up a whole new world of creativity where I feel like your creativity comes from a really interesting place of like it's creativity that's also already been vetted through the practical lens. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
I mean, that's what
you know it's capable.
Yeah, like if she throws out an idea, I know it's not just like off the top of the head. Like she's thought about it.
But that's the good thing about this industry. It's collaborative. Like you're the sum of all parts. So you may have somebody on the crew that's well versed in, you know, car rigging, and some guy that's she's done a lot of green screen and blah blah blah. But you bring it all together.
I guess where I'm going at is, let's just take Kill Game for example. Sure. For those of you who've listened to the show, you know it's a short film me and Alex are producing. It's been shot. As we were doing it, I had this vision for an end scene where everybody dies and they fall into a piece of pie.
Yep.
So it was a beautiful moment, and looking back on it, Sara came back and she said, well, A, I want to challenge that notion. I think it's a little cliche. B, what are we going to do when everybody falls into the pie? We've got to reset, we've got to redo makeup, and we've got to redo wardrobe.
Yeah.
So she sort of challenged that and then presented her option of, well, maybe they don't all have to do that. Maybe one falls on the chair, maybe one goes on the floor or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I think that's the beautiful space of or plus. No. You take an idea and you plus it up. You don't just shoot it down.
I was going to say, so in addition to, it's a sum of all parts, but it's also an industry of compromise. Mm-hmm. So you start out with these grand ideas. You don't give up, but you compromise and you find that good middle ground. Right.
I think the thing I want to call out there too, though, is it is always in the effort of creating the best end product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because sometimes people hear compromise, and I want to say this, I guess, just because in my own defense of producers who get sometimes a bad rap for just being concerned about the money or the time or whatever. And maybe there are some out there, but I think most of them, and myself included, care about making that is why we're there. We wouldn't be here doing this if it weren't about creating something beautiful. So it's not just a compromise, and it's not just
well, you could take it too far,
right? Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. They all fall into the pie, or you cut.
I just
want
to be relative to So here's a good example. I worked on a project not too long ago where we have a 1-day shoot, and we're spending a lot of time on a shot that I want to look beautiful, but also know it's half a second.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In the final piece. So, and I know we have a lot of dialogue and things that are going to require a lot of more work later on in the day. So
choose your battles.
I don't want to say to you, I don't want this to be perfect, but I want you to know. So that's where I feel my job is to kind of say hey, how do you feel about this? Where are we at? Because just for your information, this is only a half a second.
For sure.
And that other stuff is,
that's another piece of the producer puzzle, though, is the general. Choose your battles. You can't fight 3 fronts at once.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Where are you going to focus your energy?
Absolutely. And I think I appreciate that. I know I work a lot with Sara, and we mentioned Alex as well. And what I think is a beautiful thing is when you have a relationship enough where you start to realize each other's mannerisms and facial expressions.
Yeah.
So there's a certain...
I know when you're fading.
To me, to me, there's 2 Saras. There's happy, creative Sara, and then there's it's time to do business Sara. And it's just so funny to watch that. And I know as a director, I'm okay, I can't push for another shot on this. Business Sara's coming out. And I trust it because I'm that means there's a bunch of things in the background going on that if I neglect, this film won't get shot. This commercial will not finish on time. Mm-hmm. And so I learned to trust those instincts. And when I see those expressions on the face or whatever, I know I have to give up on whatever it is I'm trying to achieve creatively and just move on.
Yeah, and that's hard because I feel the same way. I know I give you those looks, but I very hesitantly because I also want you to get the best thing, but I also want you to have a complete film.
Sure.
The film is no good if it's only half done.
Yeah, you get a beautiful shot that makes no sense in the context of the film.
Right, exactly. Relative.
Yeah.
How is this the define? And when you look at me and you say, Sara, this is the defining moment of the film, then I am more than happy to be all right.
Put the energy in.
Great.
Sure. Yeah, we'll lose a half hour on this.
Right.
And try to make it up later.
Here's how we'll readjust.
Yeah.
If this is the priority, and I'm all for that.
Let me throw something on the table, Alex, from your point of view, because you're all about running the team for the day of the shoot, right? So a lot of
certain departments.
A lot of my world is pre-production, the big idea. Is this thing all going to come together?
Yep.
Your world is, I got the big idea, but I need to do it now. I need to do it today. And you've got an army sometimes, depending on the budget and whatever. You've got all these people we're working with. What's the role between, from the execution side with all of the crew members? Now, it might vary on different realms. As a director, I love, and I think you appreciate this, I love trusting you to run your team. I don't feel like I have authority to talk to the best boy.
Well, there's a technical ground that
So how important is it to you to have a producer that gets it?
Extremely. I think I'll start off by saying that I think that's one of the most understated and under-glorified maybe parts of the industry is the organizational aspect or the teamwork aspect. Like, I think there's a lot of creative people in this world, in the filmmaking, video making, documentary, whatever world, but there has to be a certain amount of personability, if that's a word, like the ability to interact with others and to manage. So there's a huge management aspect, and somebody that gets that, like as a DP, so I theoretically am in charge of the visual side of it. So the lighting, the camera, grip, those teams. And working with a producer that understands that and that knows, it's been on enough sets that knows, okay, so Brandon wants this. This is the final goal, is this dolly shot, whatever, this epic end scene. Alex knows how to technically achieve that. I've been on a shoot where we've done something similar. She knows theoretically how long it should take, whatever. And so we'll confer and say, okay, yeah, I need 2 hours to set this shot up. You know, when 3 hours passes and she's like, you know, what the F is going on? Like
it won't be 3 hours,
again,
Alex.
there's the accountability aspect, right? So somebody that it can push and say, okay, you should have this done by now, or, you know, yeah, I get it that we broke for weather, or whatever. It's super important. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. But there's the management. Like, you got to be able to manage a team. I manage my team. She manages all the teams. So it's crazy. That's like another step up.
Do you feel, Alex, that do you feel a sense of freedom or a sense of you can do your job better when you have a producer who you feel like has your back?
Absolutely. Because she's talking to you, I'm talking to her. She's also talking to everybody else. So I know that I don't have to worry about anything outside of the lighting and camera departments. You know what I mean? Just like you. If you're on a set like Kill Game, all you have to worry about is the acting and talking to me.
Sure. Have you guys ever had any asides? Because I know
I've
had some asides with Sara where I'm like, look, you got to help me out here because Alex is going to want Alex is going to want 800 lenses, and he's going to want to have this thing and have like hours of time. I feel like there's been a moment where the two of you were like, okay, Alex, we've got this shoot under control. We need to eliminate Brand. We need to
We're
eliminate.
not going to talk about.
We need to
These
eliminate
are the secrets
Brandon.
of producing.
Yeah.
You got to be well.
They're like, the two of them were like, we need to eliminate Brandon. Everything will go according to plan.
Absolutely not.
Cut him out of the picture. No.
Absolutely not.
That's
But
the compromise aspect.
do you always have those? I mean, and that again, that's kind of the little thing about producing. Like, you have to.
Be realistic.
You have to have like, you've got to be real with people. You know.
for sure.
I know. I want the
Absolutely.
Panavision anamorphics, but I can't have that. you
Right.
know?
I mean, and so sure, there's probably been times where we've been like, okay, like, I know Brandon says we're just going to do this with available light,
We can't. Yeah.
but okay, let's get real about how limited we can go.
Yeah.
You know.
It's it's again the choosing your battles. The ultimate goal,
Dance,
on every shoot is to give. I'm going to use you as the director in all senses to give you what you want.
Right.
So the goal is to give the to serve the creative, right?
Yeah, right.
So we're there to make your.
I mean, at the end of the day,
Hey,
it's really your ass if it doesn't
It really
work.
is. First of all, as the owner of the company, or like the head of Leap Frame, and the director on set, like you're the dude. If it doesn't go right, it's your ass.
It's a lot of pressure, actually.
Yeah.
And
If my wife is listening to this episode, she's gonna really appreciate that. Oh yeah,
It
sure.
is.
Everything's about Brandon.
It really is.
kind of goes back to what I was saying about people realizing like what they're all there for is like everyone sort of sometimes gets wrapped up in their own pressures, and I think it's valid because it is a high. It's kind of ridiculous, but it is kind of a high pressure industry.
There could be $1 million.
We are all. Here's the
Right.
thing: we are all gambling.
Yeah.
That the people behind us are going to be awesome. Like, let's be honest,
right,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, at the end of the day, like, I walk into every production and every project. I feel like I have a pretty good gamble, but I'm walking to every project and I'm going, yeah, Alex can do that and hit a home run, or whoever my DP is can hit a home run. I know Plyman at Sound Images is going to hit a home run on the audio. Sarah's clearly going to hit a home run from producing. But at the same time, you're probably going, oh, my PAs are going to hit a home run. My assistant producers are going to hit a home run. And you're looking at your gaffers going, oh, my gaffers are going to hit a home run. Like, we're all, like, if anything in the pyramid crumbles, like, it's all going down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the deal. Not enough love gets thrown to the technical workhorse crew, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, the grips, electrics, your gaffer, your key grip, the PAs, all the people, if you think about it like a pyramid, and that sounds terrible, the people at the bottom, because they're not at the bottom.
No. Oh,
but the
absolutely
people
not.
that are at the bottom of that pyramid are holding up the weight of everything else. If they don't do their job, you're right, that whole thing crumbles.
Yeah.
Like, you could have the best creative in the world, but if you don't have the people to execute it, it doesn't mean a damn thing.
But to your point,
Absolutely.
I've been on sets where I've seriously seen a PA change the game.
Really?
When you have a PA who comes in and anticipates and brings you the thing you need before you ask it and does the thing before you ask it, the whole set gets elevated and everyone's like, oh my gosh, who is he or who is she?
True.
And we need more of that in our lives, and the whole thing rises up.
Yep.
I've seen that happen
Yeah, no,
firsthand. And
Some
it's
of the
awesome.
parts, again, you know.
Right. I agree, because that's one of the things that I loved about coming into this business because I do think people appreciate that. But even at the very entry level positions, like, I never felt like I was just an entry level position.
Right.
No.
People really appreciate what you're doing, and maybe that's somewhat Cincinnati. I don't know, but it's true. And it really does make a difference. And that's what I was saying about remember why you're there, because
Yes.
your job is there to help make, if you're doing craft service, it's there to make everyone have a better day, be fed, be,
Yes,
happy.
Absolutely right.
But even
Right?
down to
If
to
you're-
like if you're a runner, if you're sent on a mission as a runner to go
Right.
get something, it could potentially be crucial to
it might-
finishing the project.
it
If
might
you're going to get a piece of wardrobe
Yes.
Yeah.
that someone forgot,
Yes.
and you don't get that scarf that's the color red that's necessary for a visual metaphor in the piece, like
Yes.
Right.
the project's gone.
I know. And people
Absolutely.
think, oh God, why is this such a big deal? But it's like,
Yeah.
I think that comes down to
That's-
heart, like caring about what you're doing.
You got to take your job seriously.
It is a
Yeah.
big deal.
Well, I remember
Yeah.
on the Armstrong set, we built this giant set, and we never once asked the question, how are we going to tear it down?
Never. I do that
No
all
one
the
asked that question.
time.
Because here we are on Midwest Soundstage, this giant soundstage, and they've got somebody coming in tomorrow.
Oh,
And it's got to get out of there. Yeah.
So it's got to be clean. And I never asked the question. And so here we go, and we have a guy who was a carpenter on the art department team. He was, art director, and then you have the build team. And he stepped up and he was like, oh, I'll take it. He was like, I got a farm, such and such, I got a truck, da-da-da. Save the day.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a 20-foot by 14-foot by 8-foot set. You can't just throw that in the dumpster.
No.
Like,
Wow.
that has to be
It's
disassembled.
going to be cut down into small chunks. And
And all of a sudden, what was my biggest worry, like, oh my gosh, what? How much is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
This guy steps up and goes, oh, I'll take that problem away from you. Let me tell you who was the hero of that production for me. It was not the talent. It was not the creative. It was
Yeah.
not the copy. It was him.
Yeah.
Because he solved my biggest problem and did it with a smile and built the set. Dude, he was a rock star.
Exactly. And I think that there's one word that you just said that I think people need to remember is smile.
Yeah.
Like, attitude is everything a lot of the times when it comes to this industry. If you walk on set with a bad attitude, again, we're talking about some of the parts, you bring the average, like the attitude average of everybody down.
right.
If you walk on set with a smile, all of a sudden you're going up. Like, smile,
I
it's
agree.
contagious,
That's what-
dude.
I
you know?
agree. Mojo is important. And that's probably the
Huge.
biggest thing I
Yeah.
stress. And Sarah knows this. Every time we get together for a project, I just look at her and I'm like, don't kill the mojo.
No, you got to
Like,
keep smiling.
whoever's
man.
on this thing, the
'Cause
mojo
I
has to
might.
be there.
And that starts
Yeah.
again with your point is really realizing how lucky you are. If
Right.
first of all you realize how lucky you are to be doing this job and getting paid to do that,
Right.
there's no reason you shouldn't be smiling.
Yeah. That
Like,
actually
internally,
brings up.
you know?
Yeah, that's another thing. So another tidbit from my dad there.
Yeah.
The bigger thing is people like you. Make people
Yeah.
like you. People want to hire people they like.
That's
You
true.
know,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's like that's really what matters.
If you're,
Absolutely.
if you're a grump, no one's going to want to work with you.
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Regardless of
they're-
how
they're-
talented you are.
They're long days. They're stressful days. They're
Yes.
they're whatever. You have to be somebody that people want to have on the team.
I mean, even just like Brandon and I, we go what? How many 8+ hour car rides have we been on together?
We're
Yeah.
we're an intimate
If-
we're in an intimate situation here.
If there was one part of our personalities that didn't jive, I don't think we'd work together.
No,
you know
but
what I mean?
we're in pretty deep though.
But I'm just saying.
I mean, on the just so you know,
Yeah.
on the way we posted on Instagram, we were coming back from Waukesha, Wisconsin. So we're at a level where like we ended up spending the night at his parents' house,
Yeah.
and like going to dinner. Like,
we
I
hung out
performed
with the
your wedding.
fam. You did. He was the
yeah,
oh,
we're-
you can't get.
we're at a
you
whole
can't
nother
get,
level.
Yeah,
No,
you
no,
can't
no.
get closer.
But that
than
goes
Yeah.
down to the base level of likability, of collaboration, and in the Lego thing. If you don't fit together,
Yeah.
like,
Well, I think the
you're done.
main word is trust.
Trust.
And whether it's between a director and a DP, between a client and a director, between a client and project management, between a producer and a director, you have to build trust. You have to know
Absolutely.
that what you say is what you do. When I look at a producer and I say, I need to do this, here's my budget. Can I bring my vision to life? Here's what I want. Here's the camera I want. And here's what I want to happen. If that producer looks at me and says, yes, then I have to trust that, and I'm going to act accordingly.
Yeah, you can't overthink.
If-
That worry's lifted now. You're onto
If
something
I
else.
start acting accordingly and stuff starts falling apart, I lose that trust, and I can never. It's so hard to gain that trust back again.
Sorry, yeah.
I would probably never hire that person again.
Well,
But when,
Which is-
yeah.
but when you do it, and it all, and again, not that it's perfect, but it all at the end of the day, you're like, whew, wow, it all came together. You build that trust that, oh my gosh, she pulled it together. He pulled it together. It
Right.
happened. It worked.
So for producers out there who are listening to this, going, "Holy shit,"
Uh,
I would say there's a couple things. One is do your homework, talk to your people, make sure before you say something like that, you can really execute that.
yeah.
You
That's
know,
good
I mean,
advice,
True.
yeah.
I would just do a little gut check and say, "Hey, I think that we can do this, Alex." But
And then we talk.
what are you
Yeah.
thinking about this? That has been like such an I think early on in my career, I was much more hesitant. I felt like I should know everything. I didn't call people. Now as I get older and I'm more confident, and I really am like, just pick up the phone. Just pick up the phone and say, "Alex, like this is what I'm thinking. This is what this is what Brandon
Is
wants
an
to
80-foot
do.
dolly shot possible?
Is this
with it? Yeah.
possible? Like this is how I'm thinking. Call the editor. Say like,
True.
hey, is this going to be a problem in post? Like, think about all the things that it's going to affect and have those conversations. And this is why I go back to pre-production. And people are like, oh, producers, pre-production, like worthless, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
I
But
love what
that's-
you just. I
that's
love
why.
what you just said, because to me, if I had to wrap that up in a nugget, it would be, don't be afraid to not know.
Not at all.
True.
Like your job is to figure it out, not to know.
Yeah.
And in fact, the more you think you know, probably in
Less you
some ways,
actually
the
know.
worse
Yeah.
off you might be.
Yeah.
Because you make assumptions that maybe you shouldn't.
You don't want to think you want to know. Yeah, but that's
right.
that's
I mean,
what makes
there's experience, and that happens, and you get a good
gonna
sense
say.
of, you know, when I do a bid, I'm not calling every person because I don't even know exactly what we're doing a bid based on some.
Yeah. Random
Right,
creative
right.
brief.
But at the same time, like I have people that I can call and say, hey, this specific thing is the style that they're going for. This is how I'm thinking about it. Is that possible?
Yep.
Here's how I've da-da-da-da, whatever.
and the more experience you have, the less phone calls you make because you
Yeah, because you've
know
been,
it,
you
yeah.
do, but
Hey, I did
but
the
I think
car
it's
thing,
all
yeah.
right, exactly. But it's always valid or always a good idea to
double check.
to have those conversations because everything's a little different, and I think that's what's kind of the fun of it to me. I know Brandon said before, like you and I have had
Yeah.
these conversations where we get really into like, okay, and then this happens here. Oh, but we could do this, and then we change our mind like 6 times, and Brandon's like, you know, like
Yeah.
what? But that's
Just,
the
yeah,
actually
call me when you figure it
right.
out.
Call
Yeah,
me when
yeah.
you figure it out.
So
Yeah.
what they're referring to is
I drew a diagram on.
I
Telegram.
love the diagram.
I have a threshold.
Yeah,
And my threshold is this. There's a certain point where I hit a threshold and I realize, guys, no one is going to die because of this decision.
No.
And that's literally my threshold. Like, sometimes we, in production, we get so caught up in the details. We get so caught up in the whatever it is we're thinking about in post-production, production, whatever it is. And we get lost from the big picture. And the big picture is, X. And sometimes we get lost in the details. And that's where I hit a threshold and I say, guys, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like, no one's going to die if this goes to the left or the right of what we're shooting at.
Yep.
We'll just pivot. We'll figure it out. The heart of it is there. We're all on the same page. We're going to have fun. Let's go and have a good time. And that is when I think you break through into a moment where everybody's like, you know what? You're right. Let's go have fun. We've done this. We've done our work. Let's go do it. And then you do it and it just works out. Like, it always works out.
I think that is
right?
I think that's why you have a team. I think that's why you have different people who are good at different
Shoulders
things.
to lean on.
Because I do think that you're right. Like, I know myself and I can get so down in those details sometimes that I'm like, well, as much as I love the big picture too. I mean, you can get like, okay, how is this going to exactly happen? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need that, but you need both,
Agreed.
You need both.
Man. Wow.
Agreed.
So clearly you're coming back to the show. This is great stuff.
Yeah. I mean, well,
I think the listeners are going to dig on this big time.
The relationship between departments, I think, is a huge thing that we can continue to talk about.
Absolutely.
What I want to talk about, I'm going to switch it up a little bit here. And since we're always talking about, we just talking about creating things, right?
Yeah.
I want to know, Sarah, what you're working on. One of the questions we like to ask here. What do you got
questions
currently, or what is coming up?
Stuff in the hopper. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, we talked about the LLC thing, the formalizing.
It's okay to use code names.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can talk about it a little bit.
What's going on in your world?
I mean, like I said, this has been a time of shift in my life, which is good.
Tectonic shift?
Yeah, tectonic shift. I've spent a lot of time producing other people's stuff, and as most people know, I care about doing a good job, and I care about coming out with like a really great piece. But I don't care about a lot of the stuff that we're doing in the long run. In terms of, I want to do something that I can get behind. Sure. And I think to do that, it's and I want to have more of a creative voice versus just being more of the producer. So I am sort of partnering with a couple of different people. So I've got some things kind of in development. My sister and I my sister's getting her PhD in early childhood education. Both of us have a really, obviously she does it. I'm somewhat biased, I know, but she's a super smarty. And I love what she's doing, what she's researching, and just how important that early childhood phase is. And I think there's a lot of conversation about that, but there's also a lot of ambiguity about what that means. So we are starting to kind of work on some pieces for her, especially when she comes time to do her thesis, and how we might be able to bring some of those ideas to life. So that's one thing.
In the video form?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. Traditionally, you write and I think she'll still have to write her thesis, obviously, but as a supplement and as maybe a, who knows how she'll take that or where she'll go with that. Yeah. But so that's one thing. I have some friends who are in the nonprofit space, so I've been working with them on developing some things. Cool. This whole idea of sort of attaching more of the, I think traditionally in the nonprofit space, you are trying to tell a story about what you do. And I think it's interesting to me to start to think about attaching a story to, or creating a story and then just attaching, this is why we do what we do.
Yeah.
So many of the nonprofits out there that I see right now are really trying to tell a story about what they are doing. And so I think it's an interesting shift to kind of look at it how can we create a story of why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's really a lot less focus on.
No, I get it. I think that's something that Brandon likes to talk about too, is he'll reference brands, and a lot of people do on the brand side. Here's a story of what we do. Where Brandon, I think, likes to live, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you like to find that human story on the outside that's influenced by that brand.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so
right.
Find the guy that his life is changed by the deodorant or whatever. Tell that story and then attach the brand.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I just want to do that for things that for more social issues or nonprofits or things like that. So that's kind of where I'm heading. And I've been spending a lot of time looking at some things outside of the industry. So, for instance, I just took a class in Creative Live by Alex Bloomberg, who is one of the producers, was a producer for This American Life for a long time, and now has his own podcast. I think it's called
Great show.
Planet Money.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, so he's done a course, and it's all about like how that podcast structure, like interview. I mean, I'm such a huge fan of This American Life, like in Ira Glass, and
So good.
that is like a huge influence for me. So looking at some of those things and what they're doing and how they create sort of these, oh my God, he's just so good at like getting
He's
to
a
the
genius,
heart,
yeah.
Right to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
You know,
His understanding of the power of story and the antidote is unbelievable. If you haven't heard Ira Glass's talk on the power of anecdotal thinking and storytelling,
Creativity.
Google it now. It will
Okay.
literally change the game.
Dude, everybody should listen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I've been doing a lot of that, looking at like outside of the industry on what things are happening the things that I really gravitate towards or love, like what are they doing there? What's happening there, and how can I like tap into that? And
Nice.
Well,
and
I
things
know,
like photography and stuff.
I know a production company and a director of photography who would be more than willing,
I know.
more
Trust
than
me.
willing
I
to
trust
throw
me.
all of our
It's-
love
it's-
towards you. You've been so kind to us, and we are just
can't
waiting
wait.
for you to come to us and say, "Here's a project. Here's where we're going, and
Yeah.
we're gonna follow you wherever you go."
I
So,
can't. I
To the
can't
end
wait.
of the earth. I mean,
No.
literally, like if you
Yeah.
want to go to Antarctica, we'll go with
I
you.
would love to go to
So,
Antarctica.
man, what a fun day! This has been great.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gosh,
what
I
about
love
you,
this.
dude? She talked about what she's working on. What are you
Yeah.
working on?
And I've got about 25 RFPs out there right now.
You're in the bid process, aren't you?
If they all
Yeah.
land, we are in some serious trouble.
Yeah.
We're going to need
We're gonna need some
filmmakers
backup.
from around the world to come together.
Send us
No,
your stuff.
We're really excited. We got some great opportunities that are in the hopper. I'm really excited about an opportunity we're working on right now with a brand who helps understand how people think. It's a research brand, and we're going to work with them to create a piece of content that shows how they work. And so it's a research brand. So they have a methodology that includes some really smart thinking about, instead of, traditionally research brings people into a boardroom with a curator. The way they do it is they go to the people. So this research produces, a customer, and they take it to, let's just say, Procter & Gamble. And they say, Procter & Gamble, your primary customer is, Jonathan. And Jonathan looks like this. Jonathan acts like that. And it's based on these research that they do. Well, the company I'm working with, they do research where instead of talking about Jonathan, they just go get Jonathan. They just go get him.
Yeah.
They're like, by the way, Jonathan lives in Brooklyn. We checked out his Instagram feed, and it's pretty on point. And we think he'd be a great candidate. And they have an app that they've discovered. It's a proprietary app. They give the app to Jonathan. Jonathan downloads it by invite in the App Store. And this app is amazing. It gives him missions. These missions tell him what to do. And everything that he does is supporting the story to the brand and the consumer through this company that I know I'm talking in like, I'm under
Code.
I'm under
Yeah,
non-disclosure
You
agreements.
can't. I mean, I
can't talk about this.
I literally have no idea what you're talking
Yeah.
about, but it sounds really
But at the end of the day, what we have to do is we have to convey
missions and
Sorry,
code.
sorry.
This kind of
I know.
Jonathan.
I know it sounds pretentious, but I can't say these things.
This is not pretentious.
So
just
we are making a video, a piece of media,
Yeah.
like a 60-second moment. I'm going to call it a moment.
moment snapshot.
It's a moment in life that conveys what they do, which I think is really powerful, and it conveys it to a large brand. And when they watch this, they're going to say, "Oh my gosh, we have to use you." I think that was me.
I was
you're
going to
for
say
real?
that.
I think there was a.
I don't think that was
It
me.
wasn't a
That,
belch, but
seal-
it was
that
something.
Sealbox
It
trying
was
to
a
escape.
Sealbox working its way out.
The Sealbox escape.
But
thing.
anyway, and I'm really excited about it because
That's
I
cool.
believe what these people are doing is pretty rad.
Yeah.
And I want to be a part of it. And B, I think it's a really cool challenge. Let me just say one last thing. I know this is an amazing podcast. We could go for like
time
hours.
doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah. Who cares?
I want to say this.
Just keep driving around the block if you're
This
listening.
is something that I'm learning. I'm going to go ahead and make a statement, a bold statement. That's kind of what I do on the show.
You're the bold statement
Okay,
guy.
I'm going to go ahead and make
Yeah.
a bold statement.
Bold Brandon.
Broadcast spots are meaningless. I'm going to go ahead and make that statement. Broadcast spots are meaningless. this world and this economy, there's much more at the table than broadcast spots. We have the ability to change thinking, hearts and minds, like Sara was talking about, but also how people do business. And I think that's amazing. If we can influence how people do business, we can influence economies. And that is way bigger than a broadcast spot with a funny freaking Super Bowl commercial. I just read 3 articles that said the Super Bowl commercials are dead, and I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more.
I would agree with that half of your statement.
All I want to say
Go ahead.
is I have nothing wrong with broadcast commercials. I love doing that sort of stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But there was also a whole nother world of media that is really impactful, that is changing hearts and minds for the better. And that should not be undervalued just because it's not as sexy and it might not be the front page.
I agree.
No,
that's my statement.
I completely agree. I will.
And real quick, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. As producers, directors, and people who own video production companies, I want you to hear that statement because here's why. What you're doing is not for naught. Sometimes internal communications are more powerful than broadcast spots. So keep fighting the good fight. Let's do this together.
Whoa. PSA. Good Lord. I don't even know how to talk about that. I agree with half of what you're saying.
Okay.
I agree with the sentiment.
I like the discourse here.
I do. I agree with the sentiment of what you're saying. I don't think broadcast spots are meaningless. I think it's all about the eyeballs, how many people you reach, what you're actually saying. I agree that the traditional form of broadcast spot, the comedic, just get a laugh, whatever, sell your product, is becoming meaningless. I think that whole realm needs to be reevaluated and shifted. I like the indie vibe, the creativity, all that in the web realm, and I think if that transitions into the broadcast sector, I don't think that's going anywhere. I don't think broadcast is going anywhere for a while. I think that's still going to be a big thing, even though we're transitioning to web-based and on-demand and all of that. I think if the indie, I wouldn't say indie, but if the creative hearts and minds vibe of the internet transitions into broadcast, we're all the better for it.
Okay, here's my question to you.
Go ahead.
Pushing back, because that's what we do.
Yeah, we do.
Me and you, we love each other, but we also
hate each other.
We hate each other. So here's my question to you.
Yeah.
Would you rather have 1 million Instagram views of a 15-second really witty, crafty moment that you shot and you created on Instagram, or would you have a speculative, maybe 1 million, but maybe 250,000? We're not really quite sure because Nielsen's kind of on broadcast that may or may not have happened. Which one do you want?
May or may not have happened. Oh, the views?
Yeah.
That's a tough one because my whole deal. So I'm a freelance artist / personal business owner / whatever. So in the long run, it's a weird one, man. I'm in a gray zone. So the broadcast spot, regardless of how many eyeballs saw it, that you can rate and review and all that crap, that's going to serve my career better in the long term
because it's got the sex factor.
At this point, I would agree. It's less about the larger reach and more about the perceived value of your craft. You know, I mean,
personally, I might feel better about the 1 million views on a 15-second Instagram video that actually meant something. But in the long term, it's half and half. Do my views, do my feelings really matter? Sometimes no.
I respect that.
You know?
Yeah.
So I have to, that's why I take so much time to do personal projects and crap that I believe in. Short films, documentaries, stuff with you, stuff that, I'll get into here in a second that I just did. But half the time I got to do the stuff that pays the bills, which is the broadcast, the brand spots.
But at the value proposition standpoint, correct me if I'm wrong, Sara, what's more valuable? 3 million Twitter views or speculatively maybe 50,000 local TV views? I struggle with
great.
this.
I think it depends on who you're talking to. I mean, I think for Alex, like his point is, that's great. It may have a larger reach to have all those views, and people are doing that, and people are getting famous, basically YouTube fame, or Instagram fame, whatever. But for somebody who's a working artist in this business, I still think from a professional standpoint, to be able to have both of those, to have that represented, says something still at this point. That may not be forever. But for now, I still think it says something, and therefore it holds probably maybe a little bit more weight depending on what you want to do. But it holds more weight to say, even if, I don't know, this is, it's tricky, but yeah, I think that, I think there's a perceived value.
It's a tough one.
I get it, but here's the thing that I'm challenging is I think brands need to get smarter.
I think it's different.
And they need to realize that the actual influence is on social.
It's shifting.
Not broadcast.
No, I think you're right.
Old people watch cable.
Oh, there's no question that's the direction.
That's
no question that's going that.
But I love you.
But at this point
love
right
you too,
now,
buddy.
I still think,
Sarah's our mediator.
No. I'm just saying for my professional, you asked me, hey, what's more important to you?
No, that's cool. I get it.
To me, professionally, I need the broadcast spot.
Yeah, it's sexy. I get
it. But I think it's just, you're always working with these, like, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, I mean, it's
crazy.
You've got to have both of those things because I think there's an experience that comes from this side and there's a different experience.
I think that we're on the tipping point. It used to be broadcast was king, social was what? I think we are on the tipping point where social is king, broadcast is what? I think we're at a place where people are going to say, oh, no. We are way more important on online and social media, not even YouTube, but Instagram and Twitter and whatever else is going to come next is way more influential than anything that ever hits broadcast. To be honest, I don't, maybe in the past 2 years, maybe I've watched 10% of my life has been dedicated to anything that was on actual broadcast. Everything else has been on the internet. I mean, everything we talk about on the show is the internet.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. All the actual content, the best content has been shifted to on-demand lines. So, you got your Netflix and your Amazon and your Hulu, which means that people are cutting the cord. They're dropping the cable. And if they drop the cable, they don't see the broadcast spots. And what's happening now is even though you shoot a broadcast spot, say we went out and we shot $1 million commercial tomorrow, that spot, yes, it'll play on cable and on the broadcast realms and the networks, but they're going to put so much money into the online versions of that. You're going to see it as a pre-roll on YouTube and, all over the internet.
Yeah, you'll see the 15-second cut on Insta.
And people will be skipping the ad on every video that they watch.
Right. Well, that's even if you have broadcast.
Yeah. But again, that's the whole deal is like the quick, I don't know why I'm getting off on this tangent, but the first 5 seconds of the advertisement, which I think people like Google, or not Google, but Geico and stuff.
Sure.
Hey, you can't skip this ad because it's already over.
Yeah.
That kind of, it's brilliant, dude.
Yeah, brilliant.
But that's all internet marketing,
Okay.
Stuff's changing.
This show's crazy.
It is.
It's going into part 2. If you've stuck around, thank you so much. I know you've enjoyed this.
We got to wrap it up.
Great feedback from Sarah. We knew this was going to happen because having our buddy on the show is unbelievable. You're amazing. Thanks. You're amazing. Let me ask you this. If people want to work with you, if they want to get in touch with you, if they want you to help out with their project, bring your point of view to the table, you have this passion in these different areas, where do they get a hold of you? How do we get in touch with you?
2.2 seconds away from having my website up. What?
Are you on Twitter?
I'm so not social media.
Right.
But I think the best way is probably my email.
Okay.
So old school.
Your landline?
So
yeah,
1-800-Sarah.
Let me go ahead and just
At
throw
my
this out.
home phone.
Let me go ahead and protect you from getting crazy spam.
I know. I'm like,
if you like what you're hearing from Sarah, if you like the point of view and you want to work with her, just reach out to us on FDB Podcast. We're best buddies with her. She works on a lot of projects with us. We'll connect the dots for you.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
We'll filter out the spam.
If you are in another city,
take 10% of your earnings.
If you're in another city and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to shoot in Cincinnati, I need somebody to bring that together, Sarah's the perfect person to build that team for you. Even if she can't get to it, she'll have the right people to do that for you.
Yeah.
Reach out to us on fdbpodcast.com. Go to Ask Us Anything, or our email's listed on there.
Yeah.
Shoot us an email and be like, oh my gosh, you guys talked about Sarah. We'll connect the dots. Not a problem. So do that. While you're there, check out the site. It's nice.
correct? It's new.
Yeah,
There's
I know.
a little
I just
blog
looked at it.
posts. There's
pretty.
things.
And we're going to throw a bunch of links up there for this episode.
Yeah,
'cause
you're gonna
we
have
talked about a lot.
Yeah, you're going to have the top 5, and you're going to have all sorts of stuff. And
yeah.
if you appreciate what you're hearing right now, if you like the feedback you're getting, if you like real world people talking about real world stuff that's great takeaways to change your life, go to iTunes,
That's what we do. We change
give
lives.
us a 5-star rating to just say thank you, and we appreciate that.
And write us a review. Right. Tell us exactly what you liked and didn't like.
Yeah.
Before we leave, there's one thing I want to throw out because I never got my what are you working on?
Oh my gosh.
This is it.
This is the end.
So I just finished up a short film with my buddy Adam Mark Brown, who I did Daniel and Siri with.
Oh yeah.
This is the last thing I want to say, but we just finished up the short film called Lapses. We shot it on a super tight budget, an hour east of Cincinnati in a really cool tiny motel. Awesome talent. Check it out. It's called Lapses. You can find it on my Instagram page, Alex Elkins DOP. And that's all I want to say.
It sounds to me like that's
Yeah.
something we can talk about next show.
We will.
Oh, there you
Part
go.
2.
Because I want to know about it. I want to break it down. What camera
We
did
will.
you use? How'd you do it? Would you do it?
It was really interesting.
Because to me, the
and-
thing that I'm
yeah,
intrigued about is you said you did this on a pretty small budget.
very, and we did a lot with that. So
Yeah.
Well, that's great. So
we'll break it down next time.
it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And I believe as long as everything goes according to plan, next episode we're going to have Laura Linville, art director.
Oh,
So
nice.
we mentioned the sets and the Armstrong spots and breaking it down. We can talk about how we actually did that and what it took.
Yeah, she's amazing. And
She is.
so this has been a great month, by the way.
It has.
We've had
Is this
some
like
amazing
female February?
Yes, we've had amazing.
Secretly?
We've had
no, it's
amazing
pretty
women.
open.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're trying not to be sexist about it.
yeah, we've had
but
amazing women on the show.
We wanted to feature females.
Yeah.
Well, just so you know, as of now, I believe trending, Kristen Irwin from the Film Commission, her episode is trending to be the top listening episode.
Yeah.
So
All-
clearly,
all the time.
getting the ladies on the show is a positive
yeah.
thing.
Awesome. Who else did you have? So you had Kristen, you're going to have Laura Linville.
We had,
Yeah, we had
Nicole Gunderman from the 51% Bourbon Club,
Oh,
all-female
nice.
Bourbon
which
Okay.
you might dig. Maybe
yeah.
you need to join up.
Yeah.
And she was talking. She didn't know if they had any
Yeah.
filmmakers, so you need to get in there.
All right.
And then we've got you
Up
and
their-
then Laura Linville. So
Up their social media
yeah.
game.
Yeah.
So have you had a good time?
Oh, it's been fantastic.
So
Thank
you'll
you
come back on
guys.
the show?
Absolutely.
All right, there
It's
we go.
a
That's
good
what we need to
time.
Bring
Yeah.
more Seelbach.
Yeah.
next time. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's
Cool.
been a lot of fun. We've covered a
Yes.
lot of ground. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. And we want you guys to do a great job on your productions. Keep those things in mind. The top 5 will be on the site at ftbpodcast.com.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything else to say, buddy?
I don't. Thanks, Sarah.
Cheers. Thank
Cheers.
you guys.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right.
This podcast was recorded live at Sound Images Studio. Find out more at soundimages.com.